what is the public reason for owning some assets? And I think if you started running that rule over them, you'd probably own a bit less, pay down some debt, and have less interest.
Were you satisfied with what was in it?
Well, it's always the lot of a party like ACT. We believe we've made a solid contribution to saving the taxpayer money, but clearly, a coalition government is not going to go as far as we would if it was entirely us alone. At the same time, we know that that's probably unrealistic. I don't think there'll ever be a single party government in the MMP era again after Labor's 3 years of that. So altogether, I guess you got to be pretty happy with it.
I know, but in terms of you would cut more. But if you had carte blanche, where else would you cut spending?
Well, first of all, I'd just look at the efficiency of the government apparatus. You've got 82 portfolios, you've got 41 government entities, and you've got 28 ministers. In some cases, 22 ministers in charge of one department. In other cases, one minister partially in charge of 7 different departments. So a massive rationalisation of that would not in itself lead to create major savings. But I believe it would drive major savings if you had one minister, one budget, one department, one objective, and then I think you'd find that it would be easier to get a lot more responsiveness and do stuff much more simply. The second area is around entitlements. The debate has sort of been restarted. I believe it's inevitable. We will face a choice between maintaining super at 65 and having additional taxes, or raising the age, just like Australia, America, Britain, Germany, Italy, Ireland, Spain, all raising their ages to 67, in some cases even 68. We will need to do that too, and we'll have to look at working age welfare. I refuse to believe that 1 in 6 working age New Zealanders cannot work and must be on a benefit. There's changes in the transfers, and the other area is ownership. The government has $600 billion, that's $0.6 trillion worth of assets, and yet most of them are either making no money or losing money, while we pay $9 billion of interest on almost $250 billion worth of debt. Now you have to ask yourself, if we had our time again, would we go out and buy all of those SOEs so we can pay interest on the debt and yet lose money owning them? Probably not.
Yeah, but I mean, the 600 billion of assets, though, that includes things like roads, property, school buildings, and the like, doesn't it? I mean, so,
well, I'm not suggesting we sell all of it. I'm just saying that I think that we haven't paid enough attention to what is the public reason for owning some assets. And I think if you started running that rule over them, you'd probably own a bit less, pay down some debt, and have less interest.
I mean, of course, which is what the 1984 to 1990 Labor government did do. But you'd go further.
Well, I think it's a simple question, right? At the moment, we own 3 power companies that compete with each other. Owning them doesn't appear to have reduced power prices for consumers. There may be a separate debate about the structure of the market that needs to take place. Fine. But ownership by the public in and of itself appears to be costing us money because we've got to take the risk, we've got to take the debt, we've got to pay the interest, and yet it's not obvious that the returns we're getting are adequate to cover that.
So you'd sell the government shareholding in those companies and Air New Zealand as well?
Yeah, well, let's just go in steps. You could sell down to 25% and maintain negative control, effectively a veto of how those companies behave, if that's what you wanted to do. But you could actually pay off billions of debt and save hundreds of millions of interest if you were prepared to just go to 25% and maintain negative control. Now, we need to start thinking about these options because we're like a deer in the headlights right now. So that's all I'm saying is that between the structure and efficiency of the government, the level of entitlements and cash transfers, and the amount of ownership and the interest we're paying on debt, there's areas there where a future government could go because the alternative is going to be to keep the whole inefficient thing rolling, but actually start putting higher taxes, which will inevitably drive people away from the country, and it will drive, I guess, risk-taking and entrepreneurial behaviour out of the country, even if the people themselves stay.
In terms of taxes, obviously the investment boost policy, but the other alternative was to cut the company tax rate. Did you have a particular preference?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't get into the debates around the cabinet table or elsewhere, but look, I believe that what we've done is good policy. You can make a strong argument that New Zealand has a high effective tax rate on capital, and the most efficient way to reduce that is to accelerate the depreciation on capital asset purchases, which is effectively what we've done with a 20% upfront depreciation. So I think we've actually done something that, of all the things we could have done to cut taxes, it's probably the most effective we could do.
And back to the spending cuts, I mean, if it weren't for the pay equity change, you wouldn't have had as much money freed up for new initiatives, would you?
Yeah, I think that's true, but look, I think Brooke Van Velden has done a tremendous job, because we faced liabilities of $13 billion because this pay equity regime was so unhinged and unconnected from reality that you could compare just about anyone to just about anyone, and you might succeed in saying they could be paid the same. Now, the liabilities that puts onto the Crown, because they're all Crown employees, by the way, was well calculated at $13 billion over 4 years. We've now taken that away, and that puts us in a much better place. People can still take a pay equity claim, but they have to really prove that there's sex-based discrimination happening, rather than simply saying, oh, well, we think these two groups of people should be paid the same because they just should.
What do you think about Marilyn Wearing's initiative to hold hearings into that decision?
Well, I think it probably tells me that when you retire from politics, you have to know when your time has been and gone, and I hope that Marilyn figures that out soon enough.
Look, just on another matter, but related obviously to the coalition government, this Saturday you're sworn in as Deputy Prime Minister. What does that mean for you?
It means we live in a great country. You can be a bit quirky, you can value truth over conformity, which I do, and yet if you be yourself, you back yourself, if you've got a good heart and you put in the work, good things can happen in this country, and I think that's a wonderful thing for all of us.
Will that alter in any way ACT's sort of role and position within the coalition?
No, look, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm responsible for regulation, Brooke's responsible for workplace relations and safety, Karen's responsible for children, Andrew Hoggard's doing a lot of farm stuff, and Simon Court is working on the resource management reforms. I mean, that is the real work that ACT is doing in the engine room of government. I should have mentioned Nicole McKee and AML changes. All of that work continues. Exactly where I sit at the table, that does change, but what's always mattered to ACT is the policy change that we're bringing about for the people who support us, and ultimately some of the people who maybe should have supported us.
So looking ahead then to next year's budget, which obviously will be election year, what do you want to see next year in the budget?
Well, the savings must continue. What we've done this year has got a huge windfall from this very sensible change around pay equity. But the truth is that even with the Obergall X, that is excluding ACC from the government's fiscal balance, we're still headed for a $3 billion deficit in 4 years' time, having started at 14 now. So we are going to have to continue making savings, perhaps in the ways I've described, because the alternative is that the debate over balancing the books will be settled by the people who want to tax more and who want to tax your assets. Capital taxes are by far the most destructive taxes if you believe that saving and accumulating capital is what makes workers more productive and societies more wealthy over time.